Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to the Hour of the Time. I'm your host, William Cooper. Now, as you can hear, my voice still isn't back to normal, so tonight you're going to get another interview. And this interview is with one of the giants of aviation. You're going to like this, I believe. And I would also caution you, they could be one of the biggest agents of disinformation regarding the presence of extraterrestrials visiting this earth. But to his great credit, he is the first person who will tell you that, as you will find out during this interview. John Lear, welcome to the Hour of the Time.
Thanks, Bill. Nice to be here.
As you can hear, my voice is not too good, so I'm going to keep my participation in this interview to a minimum. And I'd like to start out, John, with give us some background. Tell us who you are and where you came from and what you've been doing all your life up to this point in as short a period of time as you can.
Well, Bill, I'm an airline captain. I'm 50 years old, the big 5-0. I've flown about 160 different types of aircraft in over 50 different countries. I'm presently chief pilot for a cargo airline here in Nevada. We fly worldwide. I held 18 world speed records in the Learjet, including round the world speed record in 1966. And I'm the only pilot to have ever earned and held every airman certificate issued by the FAA. And among these certificates are the airline transport rating, flight instructor, ground instructor, navigator, flight engineer, dispatcher, mechanic, control tower operator, parachute rigger. And I hold the PATCO Award, that's the Professional Air Traffic Controllers Association Award for Outstanding Airmanship, presented in 1968. As you know, I flew missions worldwide for the CIA and other government agencies. I've flown in Southeast Asia. I flew there between 1966 and 1973, and I've had a lot of experience in flying in Europe, the Middle East, Afghanistan, the Far East, Africa, and both Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. I flew experimental test flights for the Learjet Corporation and other companies, but I really liked airline flying, and as an airline pilot, I was what they call a non-skedder, which means a pilot that flies for non-scheduled airlines, and I've flown for about 20 of those over the past 25 years of my commercial flying career, which extended over 32 years. I went to college and studied industrial design, but I didn't complete the full course. I went on to aviation as a career, and I was the youngest Boeing 707 captain to fly in commercial service when I was 28. I ran for the Nevada State Senate here in Nevada. Was unsuccessful in my bid, and as you know, my dad was William P. Lear Sr., who developed the Learjet executive aircraft, the 8-track stereo, and was the founder of Lear Incorporated, which is now Lear Seeker Corporation, a large defense contractor. I've done a lot of writing. I've written about airplanes and other subjects. I was Middle East correspondent for Combat Illustrated between 1975 and 1977, when I was stationed in Beirut with TMA, Transmediterranean Airlines. And, my dad was really interested in UFOs and used to discuss it a lot, to the great concern of the Pentagon, because he was a defense contractor. But my interest didn't come around until, about 1985. A friend of mine, who I had flown in Laos with, came through Nellis Air Force Base. He was changing from the regular Air Force into the Air National Guard, and called me up, came over, and we had a few beers and started talking about where we'd been since we'd seen each other. And I asked him where all he'd been stationed, and one of the places he mentioned was Bentwaters. Now, Bentwaters, as you know, is an Air Force base about 70 miles northeast of London, in which we have a few planes and tactical wings stationed at. And this was supposedly a place where a saucer had supposedly landed in And I had heard about the incident, so when Greg said, Bentwaters, I said, oh, that's supposedly where that saucer landed in 1980. He said, no, John, that supposedly it did. He said, I didn't see it because I was confined in quarters, but I know the guys that did see it, and he gave me the names of General Gordon Williams and Major Ted Conrad and Colonel Chuck Hall. And I looked at Greg and said, you mean this stuff is real? There are saucers and aliens? He says, well, apparently so. So I thought I knew a lot about secret things and secret goings-on, but this one I had completely missed. So I spent the next 2 years kind of researching around, writing letters, taking field trips, trying to find out if there was such a thing as flying saucers and aliens. And my trips took me to Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, California. And this was towards the end of 1987. And when I got back, I wrote what became known as the infamous John Lear hypothesis, and released it to a couple of friends of mine, and they released it on a BBS, and it was apparently downhill from there on. But essentially, what I thought I found out was that the government had been dealing with extraterrestrials since 1964, and that apparently we did have an agreement with them in which we would trade, we would help them keep their secret of their existence in trade for high-level technology. And that was the basis of the hypothesis. I'm not sure whether, in fact, that is what is happening. One of the things I've tried to do is file everything, but not believe anything. As you know, Robert Ann Wilson says you are a prisoner of your beliefs, and I've really found that to be true, that if you get stuck in any one single belief, you're imprisoned that. Everything seems to orient towards that belief. So I've tried to keep an open mind on this, whether in fact there are aliens. I don't know that for a fact. Whether in fact there are extraterrestrial vehicles, I don't know that for a fact, but some of the evidence points that way.
Well, we know for sure that UFOs are real. That can be proven by a short trip of about 140 miles northwest.
There's no question about that. The question is whether they're extraterrestrial or not.
That's correct. What kind of credence can you put into the sources of your information, John? I mean, who are these people?
Well, you have to realize that it's very difficult to establish whether somebody is telling the truth or whether he's a disinformation agent. In my particular case, since I am relatively high profile and have a famous name, I'm not sure whether that's a help or not, but I'm an easy target for disinformation. So to say that I have, the best of sources would not be accurate. I might have the best of disinformation sources, but I do have a variety of sources. Some tell me there are, in fact, extraterrestrial vehicles up at the test site. Some tell me that there are not. So what I say is, I try to file everything and believe nothing.
Well, my listeners are certainly used to hearing that, because my admonition to them is to listen to everyone, read everything, believe in nothing until they can verify it for themselves.
Well, that's very sound advice, and advice that I try to follow.
Well, in a period of time when there's so much disinformation and manipulation in an effort to tear down the sovereign status of nations and bring about a one-world government, it's difficult at best, even if you spend all of your time digging for the truth, to really know when you've reached it. And I think everybody had better begin to understand that. John, what are some of the more memorable moments in your dealings with this UFO business that you can remember? Some of the characters or some of the stories, or maybe we can inject a little bit of humor into this before we get a little more serious.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think. I think one of the more memorable times was when I first got into this and had read a book called Communion, and it was very interesting. As a matter of fact, I read it on a flight that I flew from Las Vegas to Cleveland, and when I got to Cleveland, I couldn't put the book down, and after I did put it down, I couldn't go to sleep, and for some reason I felt this was something real that was going on, and I'd heard of this guy, Bud Hopkins, and I was based in New York at the time, so I gave him a call, and he said, yeah, come on down. And I went down to his apartment in Manhattan, and we sat around for about 3 or 4 hours listening to some of the tapes that he recorded of people who had thought that they had been abducted. Now, whether these were true or not, I don't know, but the people who were talking certainly felt it was true.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these stories they told were so poignant, essentially horrifying of some of the things that happened to him. It just made a real impression on me when I first got into this. It's the first time I heard of these kinds of stories, and sitting there with Bud was, I can't say it was memorable, it sure was, and it made an impression on me. Another of the times was I was acquainted with a scientist here in Las Vegas. His name was Bob Lazar, who claimed to work at the test site. And one night he took us out to see one of the alleged test flights of these vehicles. He said it was going to fly just after sunset. This was March 22nd, 1989. We went out there, parked our vehicle, and sure enough, about 15 minutes later, this orange glowing disc rises up from behind the mountains and performs a few maneuvers and then goes back down. I thought that was pretty spectacular. Bob said it was extraterrestrial, because I have no way of knowing whether it was extraterrestrial or man-made. I can't really comment on what it was. It was just spectacular that this thing came up, made no noise, and flew around at tremendous speed, and then went back down. That was a pretty memorable moment.
I can vouch for that. It is memorable when you see it. I've been out there many times, and have actually spent weeks in the desert filming these things, and I've made 2 video documentaries of these craft actually in flight over the test site, and it is amazing to stand there and see them and know that this is a technology that's been completely hidden from the public, and it's in the possession of secret agencies of the United States government, and who cares whether it's extraterrestrial or man-made. I tend to think that it's man-made myself, but it represents a different science that could possibly benefit mankind greatly. And I think that it's a crime to keep this kind of a thing hidden. And they are disc-shaped, and they do things that are incredible. I don't know if you ever witnessed this, John, but I've literally seen them disappear from the sky. I mean, they're not there anymore. And then reappear, sometimes seconds, sometimes minutes later, sometimes in the same spot, and sometimes several miles away. Have you ever witnessed that type of behavior?
No, I've never seen that myself, but I've talked to enough people who've seen those kinds of disappearances, and I hardly agree with you that we don't know whether that particular disc that I saw was man-made. There certainly are man-made ones that perform with equal speed and dexterity, and I have reason to believe that we were much further ahead in the late 50s than the public was led to believe when Vanguard was blowing up for every flight on the Canaveral pad. I think that we were very far advanced in our modes and method of travel. I have reason to believe that we were on